Explain why the number -1 to the power of 54 equals 1. Well, easiest thing to do here is just start building the pattern up. So -1 squared would be -1 times -1. Just write -1 squared at the side there. And remember, when you're multiplying, two negatives make a positive. So 1 times 1 would be 1. And because they're both negative, two negatives make a positive. So the answer would be +1. Then increase the power. So -1 cubed. Well, that's going to be -1 times -1 times -1. So cover up all the minuses. 1 times 1 times 1 would still be 1. But every pair of minuses pairs up to make a positive. So that minus and that minus would pair up to make a positive, and there would still be one minus left at the end without anything to pair up with. So that means because that one's left at the end, that means the answer will be negative. So -1 cubed is -1. Now try another pattern. So -1 to the power of 4. This is -1 times -1 times -1 times -1. So this time you've got this negative and this negative would pair up to make a positive. This negative and this negative would pair up to make a positive. So all the negatives have been cancelled out, cancel each other out and make positives because they all fit into pairs. So then you're just left with 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 1. So -1 to the power of 4 is +1. We'll just do one more and then hopefully we'll be able to spot what the pattern is. -1 to the power of 5. So that's -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 times -1. So if you pair up the first two negatives, that would make positive. Pair up the next two negatives, that would make a positive. But then there's one negative left at the end with nothing to pair up with, which means the answer is overall going to be negative. And 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1. So the answer is -1. Now what you might notice is that there are odd powers of -1 and there are even powers of -1. And if it's odd, if it's an odd power, so like 3 and 5, that means you would always have one extra negative left over at the end that couldn't be paired up, which means the answer would be -1. But if it's even powers of -1, then because it's even, they would all pair up and cancel each other out, and there wouldn't be any negative left over at the end, which means the answer is always +1. So odd powers of -1, -1, even powers of -1 is going to give you +1.